Yo, what up? How you guys doing out there today? This is your boy Roto Beast. I'm here with my boy Jeremy. We're here to present you our NBA morning shoot around for Monday, February 24th. If you're new to this channel, please make sure to click the subscribe button below. This way you can watch all of our NBA, NFL, and MLB videos. If you haven't come and checked out our website here at dfscheatsheet.com, you're absolutely missing out. We have all the tools to help you compete with the pros day in and day out, including a complete optimizer, tons of content, daily FanDuel and DraftKings cash signups. Hey, we're truly a one-stop shop for all your DFS needs. So make sure to come check out the site here at dfscheatsheet.com. So hey, how are you doing out there, Jeremy?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm watching this Kobe deal. Sad.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, real quick before we do jump into it, I always talk about NFL, NBA, MLB, but we definitely been adding a bunch more stuff. So if you don't mind, just kind of update them on what we got going on out there.
NHL is in full. I mean, it's going 100 miles an hour, right? Our NHL has been killing. No NHL today because it's only one game. We also have for your season long fantasy guys who like to play season long MLB. Up right now, we have the first 10 rounds of our mock draft. That's under our MLB tab. So you could take a look at that. We've got NASCAR, very good weekend for NASCAR again. This previous weekend, we've got PGA, full breakdowns with all kinds of PGA content up on the site each and every week. So PGA, NASCAR, NHL is what we've added. We're still throwing out the MLB, which is coming up. We've still got NBA every single day and all kinds of tools to help you make competitive lineups.
Yeah, for sure, man. Hey, exciting time right now. Got a bunch of new stuff coming up as well, so definitely stay tuned for that. So I'm ready to talk some basketball. One thing that you kind of mentioned to me before we jumped on was, you see all these guys they're out there at the Kobe tribute. I'm starting to think that some of these guys may not make it tonight. It may end up kind of sitting. So tonight's going to be one of those nights I feel we really, really have to watch the news and really pay attention because, man, they definitely, like you said, there's a lot of guys that are out there in LA paying their respects to Kobe.
There's a lot of guys, and I'm just kind of looking over kind of the guys that I've seen and where they're playing at. Definitely seen Devin Booker's up in there. They're playing at Utah. Granted, it's a 9 o'clock Eastern game, but it's 11:30 here now, and it's 2:31 Eastern time. So you just don't know. This guy's gonna hop on a play. You see Westbrook and Harden sitting next to each other. And I mean, I've seen every time they show Westbrook, he's got tears just running down his face. So, it's a sad day. These guys are all out there, and it's one of those things where there's no news on anybody who's not playing as of yet, but you're definitely going to want to monitor it because it's definitely a tough day. There's a lot of guys in these late games that are out there.
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, man, let's jump into this slate talks of basketball. First game that we'll get started with, we're going to get started with Milwaukee going into Washington to face the Wizards.
Yeah, we say it every time that Washington's on the slate, right? This should be a track meet, but I'm not sure if this is going to be the same type of track meet that every other Washington game is, for the simple fact that this is a really good defensive team. This is the best team in the NBA at the current moment, which is the Milwaukee Bucks. And I definitely think you could take a look at some of the players here, especially Robin Lopez at 3,500. I think he's going to be a very popular play today with his brother Brook Lopez having been ruled out. It'll be interesting to see how much run Ilyasova gets, how much run Marvin Williams gets. But I do think that Robin Lopez is a guy that you could definitely consider in cash games. We know Washington's not very good against centers. You take a look at some of the minutes that Robin Lopez has been getting up to this point, and he plays between 7 and 14 minutes kind of on a regular basis. And there's not a ton of upside on this, but we have seen Robin Lopez in the past be a starter. We have seen Robin Lopez be a contributor. There was a time when Robin Lopez would get down to 4,000 and be a must play because we know he had double upside. So, if Robin Lopez is a guy who's going to play 20 minutes plus tonight at 3,500, I think you can definitely consider him. I do think he's going to be somewhat popular because he's a minimum value center going against Washington Wizards who just don't, Thomas Bryant's already been ruled out. Davis Bertans is a game time decision. So I think Lopez is probably the best play here on the Milwaukee side. Giannis, depending on how news shakes out, may be the one and only pay up spot on this slate. So, you need this game to really be a track meet, though, for Giannis to reach value. 11-8, you need almost 72 fantasy points for this guy to reach value. Can he do it? Absolutely. Is this the game you want to kind of make that bet on? I don't know. The rest of these guys, outside of Eric Bledsoe, I think Middleton's a little expensive. I think Giannis is a little expensive, but I think that the value plays, there's plenty of them with Robin Lopez, possibly Ilyasova, with Brooke Lopez having been ruled out already.
Yeah, I mean, on the Washington side of things, I think that there's two guys that you can play, and I'm really just going to kind of stick with those two guys. First thing first, I do like Ish Smith at 5,000. The guy's, he's entered that starting lineup with Isaiah Thomas being out. The guy's playing right around 28 to 30 minutes a game. He's giving you a really solid floor, about 25 fantasy points a game, and definitely is giving us seven times upside on this price tag. You only need 35. He's got there multiple times in the past 10 games, so he's a guy I think that you can look at. The only other guy I'll look at, I think Bradley Beal at 8,700. It is a little bit of a tough matchup. You talked about how good defensively Milwaukee is, but with the price drop on Bradley Beal, and he's one of those guys who he can go off any night. You see, he just went off on Chicago for 53 real life points. I know that he's probably not going to do that against Milwaukee, but I'm just kind of showing you the upside that is there. Last time they did play Milwaukee on January 28th, Bradley Beal actually did go off for 47 points, 59 real-life fantasy points. So he has shown us a little bit of upside in this matchup already earlier this year. So it's really just Beal, it's Smith, and I'm not really interested in anybody else after that. Moving on, next game we're going to talk about, we got Atlanta going into Philadelphia to face the 76ers. Real quick before we jump into this, one thing I want to talk about, but I don't know what's going on with Philadelphia. They got so much talent over there, and they're just underachieving. And I think, honestly, as much as I don't like to point fingers, I think a lot of it has to go on Joel Embiid, man. The guy there's always some drama around him, some center of he wants some kind of center of attention, and it's really messing up the team chemistry. But yeah, man, let's get started with that game.
Ben Simmons is out, so you can start with that. But just to kind of follow up with what you said, I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. First of all, I think that some of this is on the front office for putting too many pieces on this roster. They have too many people on this roster. They've got too many guys that can play the game of basketball and contribute. Maybe not in a starting role, but they've got too many guys on this roster. You talk about like Mike Scott, role player, Alec Burks, good role player. You've got you had these good role players with Korkmaz. You had these good role players with, Josh Richardson. You had Shake Milton. They had good role players already, and they've got too many guys on this roster. It seems like every year we get to a point where there's some team in the NBA that's like you don't know who's going to play because there's just too many guys on the team, and everybody takes minutes to production for each other. And I think that is what Joel Embiid is kind of irritated with because he's not the center of attention. They're just throwing pieces out there. Having said that, the first guy you have to look at on the Atlanta side is Dwayne Dedmon. $5,000. He's back in Atlanta. You take a look at this guy's game log, and it's kind of ridiculous. Under the radar is probably an understatement. 31.4, 30.3, 32.3, 30.6, 39.9. That's in 6 of his last 7 games. He had a 45.7 outing against the Clippers back on January the 30th. This guy at $5,000, he's showing you that he has 7 to 8x on this price tag of $5,000. And I get it. He's going against Joel Embiid. I get it. But Joel Embiid's not playing the best basketball of his life right now either. This whole Philadelphia 76ers team is not playing the best basketball of their life. So, I think between Dwayne Dedmon and John Collins, there's an opportunity for one of these two guys to have a really good game. And then Trae Young at 9,600, this is a really good spot for him. There's no Ben Simmons on the floor. We know Ben Simmons is a very big guard, and he creates a mismatch for a lot of other guards. But Philadelphia hasn't been the best against point guards, and Trae Young's having an outstanding season. So at 9,600 in this matchup, I borderline think that with all the drama going around the Philadelphia 76ers, this is a very winnable game for Atlanta. The spread it's 9, but I think this could possibly be a game Atlanta could come and sneak in there and maybe take one away from Philadelphia. So, I'm really looking at Dwayne Dedmon. I'm really looking at Trae Young. There is value here to be had as well, but I'm not as interested in that value as I am Dwayne Dedmon and Trae Young. I think the best value on their roster is Dedmon.
Yeah, I mean, this Atlanta team, it's tricky. It definitely is tricky, especially now you got Tobias Harris as a game-time decision. He's like I said, he's a game-time decision. I think that he is going to play. He did get upgraded, a little bit later after shoot-around. So that's a piece of news that we got to watch, especially with the fact that you said, we already got Ben Simmons out. You can look at Joel Embiid. I mean, at 10,000, I think that it's a fair price tag, especially if the ball's going to be going through him a ton. I think that he's in plays. I mean, he's definitely been up and down though. Deadman isn't a push around either. He's a pretty good, big body down there. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know who I really like on Philadelphia. I think you could look at Josh Richardson. He's a guy who'll start a shooting guard. He'll come in and he'll play some point guard minutes in that backup role. A guy that you could possibly look at, especially if Harris is out. I think that you could look at a guy like Alec Burke possibly coming off the bench at a pretty cheap price tag of 4,000. They're going to need some scoring. He's a guy that's definitely in play. I really want to play some of these Philadelphia guys, but I just don't really know who to play. Is there anybody that's really jumping out to you?
I mean, the first guy that I think that I would look at is obviously Josh Richardson here. But if Glenn Robinson's going to continue to start at 3,800, I think you can definitely look at Glenn Robinson in a game that's this high of an implied total. He's not playing a ton of minutes, but against Milwaukee, he played 19 minutes. He started. He had 26.4 fantasy points. You're not going to get 5 steals out of him every single night. But going back to the days of the Warriors, we've seen him play a role on a team, right? Raul Neto, if he's going to start, I don't know if that's a guy you want to kind of bank your lineups around. He played 28 minutes against Brooklyn, then he only played 6 minutes against Milwaukee. So, it's very difficult to predict this. But a guy I'm going to continue to roll out here is Alec Burks because he's going to get 20. I just think Burks is going to get 20 minutes. And, this is going to be a game where there's going to be scoring. I just like this spot for Burks. So that's probably, I'll really like the spot for Burks if you're going to see Tobias Harris get rolled out. But like you said, he's been upgraded.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we got to kind of wait and see what I think a big piece of the news is the Harris news. So we got to wait on that a little bit. Moving on, next game we're talking about, we got Miami going into Cleveland to face the Cavaliers.
Shake Milton as well. I mean, if he's going to start, Shake Milton's a guy you have to look at. Here's the thing with Miami, right? Miami, they've got another team with just a collection of people on their roster that why do they have all these players in their roster? But I'm going to start it with Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder is a guy at 4,800. Since coming over to Miami, 43.7, 39.6, 22.1, 26.3, and 34.8. He's played at least 20 minutes in every game. He's played at least 23 minutes in every game since coming over and has played as many as 34 minutes at a $4,800 price tag. There is no Jimmy Butler. There is no Tyler Hero. Both of those guys are out. They're projecting Kelly Olynyk to start. Olynyk's a guy at 3,900. It's always about minutes with this guy. If Kelly Olynyk is going to get run, we know Kelly Olynyk can get hot and he can knock down threes. It's a very fair value play, but you can loop him into this same kind of value play with Rob Lopez, who's going to start without really another center on that Milwaukee roster. So, he's a $3,900 player. I think Bam, it gets a usage bump here, but it's not an easy matchup. He's going to play against Drummond, and Kevin Love's a game time decision. They can still roll out Tristan Thompson. So, Kendrick Nunn has been a very popular play every time Jimmy Butler's been out. You could possibly look at him as well as Derrick Jones Jr. There's a ton of value here in Miami. It's just kind of figuring out what the rotation is going to be. And last but not least, you got to mention Goran Dragic. This guy's playing 25 to 30 minutes. He's getting you anywhere between 24 and 45 fantasy points. And without Jimmy Butler, I think there's a lot of usage that could be made up here coming off the bench, no Tyler Hero, et cetera. So, Duncan Robinson, Derrick Jones, Kendrick Nunn, those guys are all going to help you with some value. My favorite one of them, though, is Jay Crowder. And that's kind of where I'll keep it with Miami.
Yeah, on the Cleveland side of things, I mean, I think that there's a couple obvious guys. I mean, obviously, I'm going to start with Sexton. I think Sexton's having a really, really good year. 6,000, you need 30 for value. I think he can give you 6x on this price tag. So I think that's a pretty good spot for him. He's giving you a really solid floor. The next guy I'm going to talk about, Andre Drummond, 8,500, very cheap price tag for Andre Drummond. Definitely has been up and down, and the minutes haven't really been where we wanted them. Since coming over to Cleveland, they're not playing them, a bulk load of minutes. But I mean, eventually they traded for this guy. They're going to have to give him the minutes that he deserves. So I think that he is a GPP play that you could look at. Strictly GPP, though, just because of the minutes. Kevin Love is expected to play today. So I think at 6,000, he's a guy you can look at. If Kevin Love does end up getting ruled out by any chance, I think you can go back to the Larry Nance but for me, it's really the only guy I like on Cleveland. I think I like Sexton. I mean, he's their main guy that they're really kind of rolling with right now. Garland possibly as a GPP play. But that's really where I'm at, man. Miami's a really good defensive team. So I don't got too much crazy interest in the Cleveland side of things. Moving on, next game we'll talk about. This game should actually be a pretty good game, up-tempo game. A lot of fantasy relevancy in this game. It should be Orlando going into Brooklyn to face the Nets.
I love Vucevic, right? I love centers playing against Brooklyn anytime, right? We've done it for years. So I like Vucevic, not really, loving the price tag of 9,400. You have to like Markelle Fultz. You mentioned him the other day. Markelle Fultz, nobody thought that this guy was going to do what he did. The guy was having a hard time just shooting the basketball, period. And he's having a really good season. So, he's got the upside of 40 fantasy points. He plays 25 to 30 minutes every single night. You've seen him play as many as 40 minutes. 5,700 price tag for him in a game that should be really up-tempo against the Brooklyn Nets. Very close spread. You have to like him. There's ancillary plays here that in tournaments, deep field tournaments, you could definitely get exposure to, like Terrence Ross, Evan Fournier, Aaron Gordon. I'm not real keen on the price tag of Aaron Gordon at 7,100, but, he's played extremely well as of recent. 43.8 against Atlanta, 54.3 against Detroit, and 41.9 against Dallas. Like you said the other day, he's probably a little bit bitter about the slam dunk contest and getting robbed of that. As petty as it sounds, he's just got something. Sometimes it takes something small for a guy to put his chip on his shoulder and go want to ball out. So, I think that the three guys that are mainly in play, Fultz, Gordon, Vucevic, it's Brooklyn. There should be a lot of points scored in this game. You can look at, Michael Carter-Williams, maybe, Terrence Ross for sure, James Ennis, maybe, but, Evan Fournier, maybe. Those are more ancillary deep field tournament plays.
Yeah, for sure. On the Brooklyn side of things, it's the same thing. Kyrie's out, so we're going to look at Spencer Dinwiddie, 7,100 in an up-tempo game. I think he's a very fair price tag for what he's been doing. Karis LeVert coming back around, 6,500. I think that you can look at Karis LeVert. The guy, we told you, man, nobody, he was doing bad. We told you it was a matter of time before he broke out. He's on a really good run right now. I'm showing us some definite upside on this price tag. He's a guy that we can look at. Outside of that, I like Jared Allen. I continue to play him as GPP plays. He gets a ton of blocks and steals, and I think that he's a guy that gives you a little upside at 5,100. But it's really just the main two guys, man. It's Spencer Dinwiddie, it's Karis LeVert. Those are my guys. Prince and Harris are kind of splitting minutes. I really don't have too much crazy interest there. I'm gonna keep it with LeVert. Keep it with Dinwiddie. You can probably play Allen, like I said, in a little bit of GPPs, and that's really where I'm at. Moving on, next game we'll talk about, we got New York going into Houston to face the Rockets.
I really like this spot for Julius Randle a lot. It's a familiar opponent. The guy played a long time in the Western Conference. He's played against all these guys a lot. Going back to the Lakers, going back to when he was with New Orleans. He's played against the Rockets a lot with, James Harden, Westbrook, Covington especially. So, this is a team that doesn't have a center. And Julius Randle fits the mold here as a very athletic power forward / center type, kind of in a, not a Draymond type player, and he's not a center, like a better version of maybe what Clint Capella was. And I love this matchup. I definitely think you can look at RJ Barrett at 4,600. Barrett, I look for him to have a really good second half of the season. There's a lot of times these rookies where, they kind of die off towards the end of the season, but it seems that they are, because of the game load and the difference between the college games, the amount of games played, and the NBA, it kind of feels like RJ Barrett's, he was kind of tapered with the amount of minutes he played in the first half. In the second half here, I think that he's going to play a lot more minutes and play a lot more consistency. And he's already shown the ability to score the basketball in the NBA. So at 4,600, I like this play a lot in this type of game. Should draw James Harden. And I don't know if you saw this or not, but the All-Star game, that fourth quarter when, they played the 157, I think it was, I don't remember who they asked, but they asked somebody, maybe it's Kawhi Leonard. They asked him what they were trying to do at the end of the game, and they said, we were trying to give the ball to whoever James Harden was guarding. So, everybody in the NBA knows James Harden doesn't play defense, and he'll probably draw James Harden. I like Barrett a lot. You can look at Mitchell Robinson as well at 5,000. The rest of these guys, if you want to take a shot, it's a deep, dark tournament play. But for me, it's Randall, it's Barrett, and it's Mitchell Robinson, and I'm moving on.
Yeah, on the Houston side of things, it's pretty simple. We're going to look at the same guys that we've been looking at. You got Harden and Westbrook. Both of them are definitely in play. For me personally, I probably would go a little bit more with Westbrook. Westbrook's been playing really well recently, and you get a $1,100 discount off of James Harden. But at the same time, James Harden's been picking it back up. He's had 4 straight games of at least 60 fantasy points. So he's playing well. Both guys in play. Outside of that, I mean, Eric Gordon coming in at 4,300. If he's going to start and play around 30 minutes, I think that he's a guy that you can look at. Gives us a little bit of upside there. Covington at 6,300. He's actually came in and he's fit in pretty well with this team. He's been playing pretty well. He had 3 straight games of at least 35 fantasy points. The guy scoring the ball. He's playing a bunch of minutes. He's in there getting some rebounds and playing, he's doing a pretty good job at the power forward spot when he's really not a power forward. So he's definitely, I think that you can look at him in a spot against a young New York team. That's really where I'm at. I mean, PJ Tucker, he's not a guy I'm really interested in fantasy relevancy. He is a guy that, he does all their dirty work and stuff, but it's really just Westbrook, Harden, Gordon, and then you can look at Covington. I think he's a guy that you could throw in the mix. And that's really where I'm at with Houston. And also, we mentioned it, we've seen Harden and Westbrook at the Kobe thing. If those guys don't end up making it back and there's, they get ruled out, then there's definitely some other guys that we can look at to pick up the pace for the Rockets. But we got to wait on some news and see what happens there.
I think one of two things is going to happen. One, these guys are not going to play. Or two, they're going to play. And, you're in a building right now with every NBA great player, and you're there looking at, your idol, your role model. I think there's an opportunity. I would just load up Harden and Westbrook and move on. Just load them up and move on. I mean, I think they either they play and ball out tonight, or they don't play.
Got you. Hey, it makes sense, bro. I mean, it definitely makes sense. It's a pretty sad day. So moving on, next game we're going to talk about, we got Minnesota going into Dallas to face the Mavericks. And real quick, before we do get started with this, bro, let's just talk about the other day. Literally 1 minute into the game, Brunson, who was crazy chalk, ended up getting hurt, when the game barely started. And, it was a lot of people that got burned that day.
That's a game, right? That's sports. The play is correct, right? But the guy dislocated his shoulder. What are you going to do about it? You can't do anything about a guy. It's not like it was a ticky-tack thing and, it wasn't knock on wood, now that he plays for the Lakers, but not like it was an Anthony Davis deal where, he broke a fingernail and decided he wasn't going to come back and play. The guy dislocated his shoulder. Can't do anything about it.
Yeah, for sure. So who are you liking on Minnesota? Oh yeah, real quick. I was actually watching Minnesota play yesterday. They're playing. They played the Denver, and they're actually a pretty good young team. I was watching them; they're balling out.
And I'm going to give you credit for this call right here, Malik Beasley. I mean, you said it the other day. Nobody was going to play Malik Beasley, and he went out and he put up 34 fantasy points. So.
I was watching him yesterday, bro, and this dude was just going nuts, bro. They're looking for him. He basically could get any shot that he wants, and they're not gonna tell him nothing. He's like the guy that's really scoring the ball right now.
34 minutes, 17 points, 8 rebounds. And that's kind of been what he's done since he's gotten there. 28-6, 27-4, 17-8. He's at least 30 fantasy points in each of his last 3 games. I think that you have to look at Malik Beasley at 5,600. He's a very good tournament play against a team that Dallas that, you've got Doncic and you got Porzingis. You don't have a lot of great defenders here. So James Johnson, another guy you have to look at 5,400. Another guy you called Juancho Hernangomez. You got to look at – these guys are really good value plays. They're playing good basketball. Naz Reid, 5,000. There's a ton of good value here. Obviously, we could talk about D'Angelo Russell. He's not on the injury report today, going to come back. He's played at least 34 minutes in each game since going there, 55.7, 41.7. He's $8,600. We don't have to tell you about D'Angelo Russell. The guy's a scorer, and that's really what he does. He doesn't play a lot of defense. He turns the ball over a little bit, but he can hit shots, and he can score the basketball. So, for me, there's a lot of value here with Beasley, James Johnson, Hernangomez, Naz Reid. It's kind of about who's going to start. But it really doesn't matter because you look, James Johnson didn't start the other night, and James Johnson still put up 30-plus fantasy points. So, 31.7 coming off the bench. So, I think you can look at Beasley, Johnson, Hernangomez, Naz Reid, and D'Angelo Russell as well as Beasley.
Yeah. One thing I do want to piggyback a little bit is I was watching that guy, Naz Reid, and I really like that guy. That guy's really good. At 5,000, going against a team in Dallas that doesn't have any real big men that they play, I think that he can have a pretty good game here. He showed us some upside the other day for sure. Moving on to the Dallas side of things, so we know that Doncic, he's a game time decision. Say he's going to come back today. If he does come back, definitely I think he could. You can look at him at 9,800. If he does end up getting ruled out for some reason, I think you could look at a guy like JJ Barea. He's the other point guard they got with Brunson being out. So that's a piece of news that we do got to wait on. And then, you can look at a guy like DeLon Wright, 4,600. He's a guy that's been getting some run. Tim Hardaway, 6,200, exploded the other day for 43 fantasy points, 33 real-life points. But one thing I do want to mention, it was in a really good matchup against Atlanta, and there was no Porzingis or no Doncic, so he was the main scorer. So I just don't want people to chase that and think that he's just going to go crazy. But I still think that he's a guy that you can look at, especially against a young Minnesota team on the second end of a back-to-back. The other guy I'll look at, Porzingis, 8,800. With no cat down there. He's going to be bigger than everybody on the floor. The guy's been playing fairly well. I think that Porzingis is the guy that you could really look at today at 8,800. That's really where I'm at. Kleber, he's a guy you can look at in GPPs, but he's all over the place. Some days he's playing a bunch of minutes and getting a lot of fantasy points. Other days he's kind of a dud. So for me, the main guy is Porzingis. I think you can still look at Tim Hardaway, more of a GPP play if Doncic comes back. And if Doncic is ruled out, you can look at a guy like JJ Barea. And that's really where I'm at with the downside of things.
Do you think Towns is done for the season?
It's tough. He broke his wrist, and what do we got? 20, 25 games left?
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. And there's no point in rushing back your star player and him not being fully healed and hurt himself even more. What do you think?
I don't know, man. He dealt with the knee thing for so long, and it was very suspicious how that whole thing was going down. It wasn't like we were getting any information. It was a game-time decision every night, and it was a knee injury, and we never heard anything about it. And now you've got a second injury where he sought out a second opinion and got a firm diagnosis on that thing, and they're saying he's out at least 2 weeks. I just don't know if 2 weeks seems like that's even the right time frame to put on it. So,
well, what is a broken wrist?
For Towns?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a broken wrist.
Yeah.
Yeah, how are you going to come back in 2 weeks from a broken wrist? That just don't make sense to me. You know what I mean? So
that's what I'm saying. It's got a fractured wrist, and you're saying 2 weeks, and you kind of gave us the game time decision with everything that went on with his knee injury, and now we know straight up you've got a broken wrist. You're saying 2 weeks.
Right. No, I get you completely. Moving on, next game we're going to talk about, we got Phoenix going into Utah to face the Jazz.
I'm going to have probably too much Devin Booker tonight, but here, and my reasoning doesn't even make sense, really. I'm going to go off this. Kobe passed away on January 26th. Right before that game, Devin Booker found out he's playing against Memphis, I believe, or maybe he's playing against Memphis, and he had 44.9 fantasy points, went out and balled. And then the next game was January 28th, I think, and he had 50 or 60 fantasy points. Devin Booker's there today. If Devin Booker plays tonight, I want a lot of Devin Booker. And I'll continue to say Utah, from a basketball standpoint, Utah is not a great defensive team. It looks like Vegas is starting to realize that. They were living kind of off reputation before. I love Devin Booker in this spot. 8,100. I think you could definitely look at Ricky Rubio. You could definitely look at Kelly Oubre and Mikal Bridges. Ayton is very interesting to me tonight because I think people will fade him, kind of with the mentality that you have. It's a tough matchup going against Rudy Gobert. But Ayton, man, if this guy plays tonight, he's very intriguing to me because of the fact that he's balling. There's no other way to say it. You look at his recent games, and he's got 51 fantasy points or more and like 6 of his last 7 games with one dud against Houston where he only played 23 minutes. Anytime over the last kind of month and a half, he's played at least 30 minutes. He's gotten you at least 45 fantasy points. So, it's an intriguing matchup to me. And it's one that I think you can get the guy very low owned, and you would play him kind of at a lower exposure rate, and you're kind of banking that he goes off for 60 tonight where nobody else has him against Rudy Gobert. It's intriguing for tournaments. Don't recommend it at all in cash games. We've talked about other guys, but for me, I really want some Devin Booker tonight, and I really think Devin Booker is going to go out. He's really going to try to put up a lot of points tonight, do a lot of scoring.
Yeah, for sure. On the Utah side of things, there's definitely some guys that we can look at. You got Mike Conley. He'll be back. I think he's a very fair price tag coming off a pretty good game. This should be an up-tempo game for Utah, and I definitely like Mike Conley at 5,700. Then, I got like Donovan Mitchell, 7,000. I think it's a very fair price tag for Donovan Mitchell. He's a guy that definitely gives us some upside, especially if he's going to be going back and forth with Devin Booker, kind of see who can outscore each other. I like Donovan Mitchell in this spot. The only other guy I'll look at, I look at Rudy Gobert, 8,000. I think this is a spot that he can have a pretty decent game. He definitely has been all over the place, so he's a little bit more of a GPP play. But those are really the three guys I'm going to look at. I'm not really going to look at Bogdanovich. I'm not going to look at Ingles with Mike Conley being back. The only other guy I'll even throw out there in the mix of GPPs is Jordan Clarkson. He's their sixth man coming off the bench. He's playing very well for them, scoring the ball, etc. He's going to get his burn, regardless. I think Clarkson's a guy you can look at, in a GPP setting as well. And that's really where I'm at. Moving on, final game we got Memphis going into LA to face the Clippers.
Yeah, man, and the one guy I like here is Valanciunas. I like Valanciunas. I think 7,000 is a fair price tag. Valanciunas can get you 6x on his price tag. He's coming off 2 games where he didn't play a lot of minutes and didn't put up a lot of production. 2 points short of a double-double, though, in each of those. But we've seen him have 50 fantasy point upside. We've seen him have 60 fantasy point upside. I like Valanciunas in this matchup. The one thing that the Clippers don't have is a real good center. They got 2 guys that are tweeners. They got a guy who's in Zubac, who's not a real strong center, but he plays the center position well. He can rebound, do a couple of other things. And then when you got Harrell in the game, he's not the guy. Harrell doesn't really fit what the Clippers want to do. That's why they were shopping around for a center before the All-Star break or before the trade deadline. So I think that Valanciunas is in a good spot. It's a mismatch. I like him. Other than that, this is kind of a rotational mess for me. With you don't know what you're going to get out of Morant. He's playing 30 minutes, but the production's been down because DeAnthony Melton and Tyus Jones are on the floor. You got Kyle Anderson who's come back. Since Kyle Anderson has come back, they've elevated Melton. They've elevated Tyus Jones. It's taken away from Dylan Brooks a little bit. So for me, Memphis is kind of a full fade for me, with the exception of I'll probably have a little bit of exposure to Valanciunas, and that's really it.
Yeah, I mean, man, it's tough on the Clipper side of things. They're so deep as a team. They picked up some really good pieces at the trade deadline. I got to give them credit for that as well. Man, it's tough. We got to wait on the Paul George news. If Paul George does end up not playing today, I think you could look at Kawhi Leonard, 10,000 and giving us a really solid floor, at least 50 in 3 straight games. But if Paul George does come back, I really don't like, Kawhi Leonard as much. Outside that, you got some guys that are coming in cheap, man. You got Harrell coming in at 5,800. I think that he's a good GPP player. You got Lou Williams coming in at 5,200. I think he's a pretty good GPP player. There are 2 guys coming off the bench. Reggie Jackson got the start last game at 4,100. If Beverly's going to be out and Jackson's going to start, I possibly think you could look at Jackson. It's just too cheap of a price tag. We know the kind of upside that he can give us, even in limited minutes. But it's tough. It's really just, for me, with the Clippers, it's really just Lou Williams and Harrell as GPP plays, and then you could look at Kawhi Leonard if Paul George is out, and that's really where I'm at. They're so deep at every single position. It's really, really hard to kind of like these guys for fantasy relevancy for sure. So I think that's really where we're at with this video. If you want a more in-depth analysis, make sure to check out the site, dfscheatsheet.com. And hey, good luck on our guys' contest tonight, all right? Peace out.